Have you ever thought about creating a group mastermind as a way to attract and engage your clients? Today's guest does just that for his own company. He created a mastermind to serve his accounting firm clients. It's an approach that's popular in the entrepreneurial world, but I believe it has strong potential for all of you mid-size and even larger brands too. So I invited Matt Banker to come on and give us a behind the scenes of what he's doing at his company. Matt Banker is the owner and founder of Banker Creative. And he has an interesting background. After studying conceptual installation sculpture in college, followed by a handful of years teaching middle and high schoolers, Matt landed in marketing as a third career. He's the founder and visionary of 3 boutique marketing agencies that serve specific niche markets. And as a longtime story brand guide like myself, he brings a words first approach to marketing strategy. Matt's a consultant at heart and loves helping his clients solve marketing problems and is constantly thinking about what the next evolution of marketing is going to be. Welcome to Marketing with Empathy, where we help marketers and business professionals create content that drives better business results, content that attracts and engages new and existing customers. How? By planning content through an empathy lens, positioning your customer as the hero and you and your brand as the guide that they want to buy from because you get them. I'm your host, Sarah Panus, and I understand how hard it is to juggle all the demands coming at you. As a content strategist and certified story brand guide, I have more than 20 years of experience creating winning content plans for brands of all sizes, including Sleep Number, Starbucks, SheFit, and numerous mid and small size businesses, helping drive millions of engagements and sales each year. And this podcast is in the top 5% of all marketing podcasts thanks to your support. And before we hear from today's sponsors and jump into the interview, I have a new exciting quiz to help improve your content strategy that I invite you to take. You can discover which content makeover will boost your brand's success. Take this 40-second quiz to find out which home makeover show is most like your brand, and then get a content makeover plan to help you attract customers and drive better business results. You can find the quiz on my website at kindredspeak.com/favorites or see the link in this episode's description. Now, a quick word from today's sponsors, and then we'll jump right into hearing Matt Banker's creative mastermind approach that you may decide to create something like to attract and engage your own customers.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
Okay, Matt, welcome to the show. I'm excited for this conversation because I think it's going to expand my listeners' thinking into maybe something else that they could be doing within their own organization, spark a new idea, a different way of thinking, outside the box of how to connect with their customers in a different way, because you've found a really creative way to engage a niche audience that's working really well for your business. So first, let's just rewind. Tell us the backstory that led you to create a mastermind for accounting people.
Yeah. So my last name is Banker. And for whatever reason, I had a generalist marketing agency, but we tended to attract people that worked with money. You see me in a list. And so accountants, financial advisors, some investment funds, things like that. We would get some of those clients. They were always great clients. And so about 2 years ago, we decided really to double down. We actually launched a sub brand marketing for accounting firms. It's called Benchmark Growth, but the website is marketingforaccountingfirms.com. And we really just said, all right, this is our niche. These are our people. And so we started working with them. And one of the things that I found, the more you work with the same type of client, the more insights you get. And so you find deeper and more interesting problems, I think. And so with a lot of our clients, we found that the owner wanted to learn how to do marketing, but really just enough to understand if they were getting a good deal from the agency they were working with, or if they had a marketing person, if that person was doing a good job. But where the real struggle was just around time. The owner didn't want to be in charge of marketing, but they didn't know how to manage a marketing person or how to tell if they were being successful. And so what we saw is we saw an opportunity for us to coach the people at the firm to do their marketing. So we're still an agency. We provide services for them, but in a lot of cases, we're working with an admin or even sometimes a bookkeeper, someone in the firm who is interested in marketing, and we're helping them understand and upskill what they're doing. We do have a couple owners that are a part of the mastermind as well, but the innovation was the decision maker or the person who is making a financial investment is not always the person who is experiencing the benefits or the results. And so the mastermind was selling to firm owners, but their people were the ones that were really benefiting from it. And so in a lot of ways, the owners were saying, hey, this is great. I can throw a little bit of money, but I don't have to throw any time at this problem. And I can still trust that it's going to get solved. And that time piece was such a big part of it. This is a really, I think, underrated thing about choosing a niche and really understanding it is that I think a lot of people think if they choose a niche, they're going to get bored by working with the same clients over and over again. And what I've found is actually in spending more time in a niche, you uncover deeper, more interesting problems to solve. And so you're not solving the surface level things over and over again for lots of different clients. You're solving deeper problems for the clients that you work with again and again. And a couple of things were happening. So one was a lot of accountants have this like natural busy season. February through April with taxes tends to be really busy. And so they have admins and other people who are really busy during that time, just getting stuff out the door, communication with clients. And then those people have a big chunk of their year where they just don't quite have enough to do. And so firm owners are like, oh, maybe this admin person could help with social media, which is a great idea. Like I have resources. How can I reallocate those better for my team? But they didn't know anything about marketing. And so it was like running, you can run the wrong direction and you're busy, but it's not effective. So that was a big part of it. The other piece of it was just, we're a premium service, right? We don't compete on price. We're not trying to be the cheap alternative, mass market, copy paste template version of a marketing firm. And there was just a lot of our niche that couldn't afford what our prices were yet. But this mastermind was a DIY option for them to invest some of the resources they already had and improve their marketing across the board.
Mastermind's becoming a much more common word now, but I guarantee there's someone listening right now who's like, what's a mastermind? And that is completely okay. Whatever camp you're in, if you do or don't know what it is, that is fine. That's why we're here and we're going to explain it. And I've observed masterminds run in a lot of different ways too. And it's interesting because when I used to work corporate, I never heard about masterminds. And then now that I'm an entrepreneur and run my own business, I hear all about masterminds. So that's why I think this is such a great opportunity for everybody listening to think about something that you may not even have on your radar. So Matt, could you give us some background then on how your mastermind works exactly and what it is?
I think the typical way to think about it is as a thing for most senior people in a company. Yeah. But one of the things that happened during the pandemic, actually, or at least the lockdown period, was that more people started getting connected with communities, others who shared their job title, but maybe not at the same company. And so you started to see some of these communities grow organically and connected. And we leverage that. Everybody's comfortable being online through Zoom. So our mastermind, it's pretty straightforward. We meet on a weekly basis. Generally, I create some sort of video or send out a video, share something that someone else has created, but there's a pre-call piece of content that we use to frame the discussion. And then we just get on a weekly call. We do a little bit of a deeper dive into that. And then we rotate through a couple different things. We'll do marketing hot seats for some of the clients where we just say, what are you doing? What's working? What are your questions? We'll do a lot of platform and product tours. So I'll just pull up Google Analytics and walk through, here's what you should be looking at, or we pull up Active Campaign or something. Here's how to set up email automation campaigns. Here's how to use a CRM. And so it's just expanding knowledge. I'm a generalist. I get excited about all these different things. And so I like teaching. I like being in that queue, and I have a broad base of knowledge. So I'm just there as a bit of a resource. And then we have a Slack channel it's a shared Slack channel. So people can post things and get feedback there, and a resource library of swipe files and things that we've created. In the end, ours is a long mastermind. We built out a 48-week curriculum. We did it for the full year. We decided to make people pay for the whole thing in advance because we thought that it would get better commitment versus something monthly. We also wanted to have that community that you're going to see the same people every week. We're not constantly rotating in new members and other members are rotating out. We wanted them to be committed and to develop a bit of that community.
Okay, so since yours is a whole year, one of the things that makes me think about then is what happens if people leave, they change jobs? Do they just backfill it with someone new that's taking on that role in the company? Or, how do companies think about that?
And this is a key part that I didn't really mention about the mastermind is we are selling to the owner of the firm or the CEO or something. We're not selling to the individual. And so part of our promise and relationship with them is that we're responsible to the owner as well as to the marketer in-house. And so two things happen. One, we sell it as a firm seat, not an individual seat. And we actually give them 2 seats. So the owners are always welcome to come and sit in on any of the discussions if they're interested. Some firms have a salesperson and a marketing person in it. Some just have a marketing person. And so if that person leaves and they replace them, then they're able to bring in whoever is in that seat can just join the mastermind. And then on a quarterly basis, though, I also meet with the firm owners. And so again, the problem that our clients were facing was the owners wanted marketing, but they didn't know what they really wanted or how to manage or set expectations. And so by me meeting with them regularly, I'm able to communicate 2 things. One, your person is great, but they need more resources or encouragement or something from you as the firm owner. They're not going to be successful unless you're able to give them a bit more. But then also I can say, hey, your marketing person needs to be pushed in these areas. Or we haven't had this happen yet, but the idea is if they're in the marketing mastermind and we get to a point where we're saying, hey, this is not the right person for this seat in your organization, they get that honest feedback. But it's a dual responsibility. We're there to support, uplift, and make that marketing person successful, but also be a truth teller and to be that source for the firm owner.
It's such a great partnership idea. I just love it, which is why I wanted you to come on and talk about this as a different way to think about engaging your community. And then in this case, you're engaging it through their employees, which is helping lift up the entire organization as well. Have you run into a case where you've had too many people in the mastermind? I'm curious, what would you say is kind of the max number that's good for a community to have regular dialogue with each other?
We haven't really run into the too many people issue very often. Every once in a while, we have a lot of people on screen. The bigger challenge, actually, and I think this is the continuing challenge with masterminds. One of the things that tends to work well with masterminds is that you get out of it what you put into it. And so a lot of like owners or senior people in companies, they choose to join a mastermind because they want something from it. And in our case, there were some situations where it was chosen for them, right? They have a person in a seat and then they want this person to participate in the mastermind. And so sometimes the bigger challenge is actually getting enough participation out of everybody in the group. So that's been more of the problem. We don't have, it's not a huge group, right? So I think we have 10 firms that are in it this year. And so, like I said, there's 2 seats. So max, there's 2 seats plus owners might show up. The max we've ever had, I think, is 20 people or so on a call. And that's been pretty manageable.
Okay, 20 people does feel manageable. That's also a number I've heard in other mastermind groups as well. So you're echoing that number. Let's talk about the content because we talk a lot about content on this show. So naturally, I'm thinking, okay, you've got a whole year with this group. You've got 48 weeks of opportunity. Thanks for summarizing some of the stuff you already talked to them about, but I'm curious about the content plan that's tied to this mastermind. How do you decide what topics and content get shared inside your mastermind versus through your other services or other channels?
So 48 weeks on one hand is like really long, but when you start to break it down to this is an overview of everything marketing related. Like that you run out of weeks pretty quick because some topics take a lot of discussion. So we broke it into seasons, and I just broke it into seasons that are more based on the accounting firm cycle and then just natural breakpoints. So we've got our summer season from about June through August, and then fall is September through December. Our winter goes from, it's really January, February, and then our spring is March through May. And so each one of those, we have a book as like our core text. We started with building a story brand. I'm a story brand guide, and that's a big deal in our world, and we find it really helpful. Then we have the fall is social media focused. Right now, we're working through article and video content. So They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan is what we're doing right now. And
a great book.
In the spring, we were going to do $100 million offer, the Alex Hormozy. We might do the $100 million leads book. I haven't decided yet. We even might switch it up, but that's the core text. And then we sprinkle in there more technical things. So we'll do a week on Google Ads and Google Analytics. We'll do a couple weeks on SEO at some point. We might do a WordPress training because a lot of our clients are using WordPress. And so I had mapped out a topic for the week for 48 weeks around these kind of bigger ideas in general, and then some specifics. And then we switch it up if we need to. Every once in a while, someone says, hey, we want to do something different, or we're really interested in video editing. We'll put in a week there to do something like that.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to think of those seasonal topics with a seasonal calendar for your industry for sure. So I would say, everyone listening, that seasonal approach is great. And then you can also think of what are those evergreen topics, if your industry doesn't have a lot of seasonality. Every industry has some seasonality, but I know some are more blanketed than others, which makes a lot of sense. So question, Matt, about the books that you are reading as a group, because I think that's interesting to incorporate this kind of book club aspect into the mastermind to educate them, which is the point of a mastermind. Do you run it like a book club where you say, here's the book for this season, everyone needs to read it, we're going to talk about it during the calls, or is it not discussed as much and it's more like bonus material?
Yeah, I would say that's an area that we're still learning. Some folks grab the book, they breeze right through it right away, and then some never get around to it. We've had a couple firms who they have a marketing person, but as the year has gone on, they've just realized, man, we have hiring issues or we've got process issues. And so they're there really to gain some foundational knowledge rather than put it into practice right away. And so it does depend on where you're at. What I've found is, as long as enough of the group is on the same page, like literally reading the pages in the book, you can get a pretty good discussion, and you can still, I think everybody can get value out of that. But we haven't really run it as a, like, every week we're going to read certain chapters. We did a little bit more of that at the beginning. And honestly, we ran out of time on our calls because we ended up spending more time Q&A or doing these product tours and things like that, because that was what the group felt like they needed at the time.
Okay, so now that you've been doing this mastermind for some time, I'm sure you've run into some do's and don'ts, mistakes and wins through the years. People that are listening that are intrigued, what tips do you have to help them make their own masterminds successful?
We ran it as a 3-month pilot project with just a couple of folks the first time around. And so I think that is good. The biggest question that I had going into it was critical mass. The important piece of running a successful mastermind is that you have to have enough people who are there and who are bought in. And we grandfathered in a couple clients just to make sure we had a few folks that were committed. We had the number in mind. If we hit, I think it was 5 or 6, if we hit 6 firms the first time we ran it, we were going to do it. And part of that was like, all right, so we're going to recruit 2 of our current clients and offer them a discount to fill this up. So that's the first piece. It would be a real slog to run a mastermind that's 48 weeks for 3 or 4 people, right? Like that's a lot of work. So we had, and even just from a financial investment, there was this level of what would make sense. And so you have to have a good and I guess hungry audience that needs what you're offering first. So I would test it. I would do a listening tour with your current clients, or I would do a pilot project with a few just to see, is this something that they would find valuable, get some feedback. It works for us because it's a specific niche and there was really this specific need. But I can 100% see, maybe you work with dentists. They probably have a front desk person who is really busy sometimes and also could do more for their social media, but they don't know what to do. I could see a mastermind for them working really well, a lot of different niches. I'd be a little careful if it's just generalists, that you have enough affinity between the people who are part of the group and enough overlap in what they're trying to accomplish. So having clarity around what is it that you're trying to do and who is this a right fit for is going to be important. Masterminds for business owners, we know that those work well. I think that the thing that is different about ours was thinking about who really needs this and who should be participating. Because if there's an innovation here, it's not really an innovation, but it's that we recognized that the owners didn't have time to invest in a mastermind. And so we were looking for a new way to serve the owner, who was the ultimate customer, by serving their people. And that really, I don't know, I guess I was surprised at how well that worked. So I would look for those kind of, what's the sideways way into thinking about this rather than the classic, get a bunch of entrepreneurs in a room and assume that they want to hear the smart things that you have to talk about.
And then I'm thinking too of all of everyone listening that doesn't run their own company, but they work for somebody else. And, there's a lot of people listening right now that work in corporate, they work for someone else's company, and maybe they like this idea and they want to sell it in to their boss. So Matt, you talk to a lot of owners in selling this in. I'm curious if we think with that lens, so any selling points and tips that you can share that would help them sell in this idea to another senior level decision maker at a company? Like, what's resonated well in those conversations for you?
Yeah. And I think this is probably true across industries, but the marketing seat for small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, is a pretty lonely position, because a lot of times you're the only one in the company and it's completely different than everything else that your company does. You could be sitting in the marketing seat at a metal fabrication company, right? Everybody else is cutting metal, talking to clients, going to trade shows, and you're sitting there on your computer trying to get people excited about metal fabrication on LinkedIn or something. And so I think a big piece of it is we learn so much from our peers. I think this idea of having a community of peers, and in cases a coach as well, makes a lot of sense to a lot of these business owners because they've experienced that themselves. And with the internet and the rise of micro communities, the opportunity for that to be at lower levels in a company increases and increases. And so that's where I'd start, is just say, hey, I'm the only one in this seat. I don't know who to learn from. I don't know anyone else who's trying things. We'll get better if I can connect with people who are doing what I'm doing. I can learn from them. We can share best practices.
Excellent tips. I think that's a fantastic approach for people to use as they have that conversation with their boss or the decision maker. And I would say, flipping that too, if you are the boss, you are the manager that's listening to this right now, there's a lot of movement happening in the marketing space right now with jobs, both voluntarily and involuntarily. But there's a lot of movement. People are leaving, people are switching gears and switching jobs. So if you have a really good person, you want to keep them. Absolutely. Developing them so that they want to stay with your company only has upside for you and for the company. And so something like a mastermind is a great tool for employee retention. As a leader, be thinking about that in terms of what professional development opportunities you can be offering your team.
Yeah, if you're in a leadership position, I have not thought about it this way, but it makes me wonder, is the reason that marketing roles tend to cycle through so quickly is that they have a hard time feeling connected and invested in the company because they're on an island, especially if you're in a work from home sort of situation. And so I would look for who are the employees who are really important and valuable to the company, but are a little bit isolated within the organization. How can we find ways to connect them with other people who are doing what they're doing, or connecting them better internally as well is important. But I think this peer group mastermind, if you're in a seat and there doesn't exist a group like this for your industry, start connecting with other people who share your job title on LinkedIn. And maybe you put together an informal group every once in a while. I'm such a big believer in peer-to-peer sharing and growth that I know that's been a huge deal for me. And I see that it's working well with our mastermind. So if you don't have it, seek it out, create it, pitch your boss on it, whatever it is. I think those are all totally valid things to do.
Love it. And I don't think I mentioned this to you earlier, Matt. I actually do have a mastermind, a cohort type like this, but that's specifically for content marketers that work inside of brands. It's called Brand Storytelling Academy. And going forward, I'm actually in the process of completely changing the structure of it this year and relaunching it so that the format and the cadence and all sorts of things will be different than what it currently is. And I'm going to be adding in a lot more story brand goodness into it, since we're both story brand certified guides. It's amazing what it can do to help businesses, this peer dialogue and learning together. But one of the mistakes I learned for my audience, and it sounds like that's not the case for yours, was that, and this is why it's so important, everyone, to understand who you're serving. So Matt, you're meeting weekly for a year and that cadence works. With mine, when I was doing weekly for these really busy content marketers inside brands, it was too frequent. So I'm actually going to be scaling it back and saying, okay, let's do monthly and just do really meaty monthly topics instead of the weekly. So there are nuances, and I share that because you just don't know until you try, and you don't know until you start doing it, like what's going to work best for your audience. And so as we get close to wrapping up here, are there any mistakes you've learned from running these masterminds, Matt, that you would just flag for us to watch for?
I think you bring up a good point. I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but I think when we went into it, my expectation, I taught for a while before. I was an art teacher for a few years, and my thought was, I'm going to lay out a curriculum and every group is going to progress. And what we realized is that every team was at a different point. And so all of the topics were helpful to learn about, but they weren't going to have time to implement everything we were talking about. It was like, it's like drinking from a fire hose to meet every week. I think that's what you're saying. And so we had to become pretty comfortable with some of the topics were going to be highly relevant for some teams, and some they were just going to say, that's great to know, it's on the shelf maybe someday, because we don't have the capacity. But what that means is you also have to be a bit in tune with where everyone is at. It's not really possible, even when you have the same types of businesses, to keep everybody on the same cadence, because they are at different developmental stages within building their own marketing journey. And so we've built something, I think it works well, where we hit everything. There is value for everybody throughout the mastermind, but there's going to be more value some months than others. And so we're really comfortable with knowing this is a little bit personalized for everybody who's in here, and we didn't expect them to all be on that same step-by-step cadence.
Makes a ton of sense. And that's good to let the group know in advance too, so that if maybe the first couple of topics aren't complete home runs for them, and then they start doubting, like, wait, why am I in this group? They know maybe this month's isn't as relevant, but future months will be, and kind of laying out all the different milestones and topics that they're going to be talking through so they can see the big picture. All right, so before we wrap up, Matt, anything else that I should ask you about, but I haven't yet?
I think one of the keys to our success with this mastermind is having spent a lot of time in the niche before we launched it. And so one of the mistakes I think I see with people is sometimes trying to launch into a position of expertise before they've really done the work and talked to their clients. One of the main things that really worked for us was being very generous in our free content elsewhere in a way that developed trust. And so we had several champions within this community of accountants that we work with who, when we announced this mastermind, we're like, oh, I've been waiting for an opportunity to work with Matt and his team, but their prices were really high. This seems like a great opportunity. And that pre-work is great. People won't jump into a mastermind if they don't already trust you, I think. And so if you don't launch too soon, if you're still developing into that niche, if that's the direction you're going, don't launch too soon. You're better off creating a peer cohort where there's not a price attached to it, because you really have to be able to offer high value and have those insights in order for it to be something that's going to be successful. That's if you're a consultant like we are. Yeah, don't jump too soon, I guess is my answer.
All right, well, we're wrapping up now. So tell us all the ways that people can connect with you if they're interested in talking more about masterminds, if they're an accounting firm that's listening and you want help. Matt, your company also does web stuff for general brands as well. You have so many great things going on with your business. Tell us all the ways that people can connect with you.
We operate a couple different brands. One of them is marketing for accounting firms. You can find me, though, LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm pretty active on both of those places. Just Matt Banker. I'm the guy with the pink purple background in my profile pictures and things. And I do spend most of my time these days focused on marketing for accounting firms, but I'm very much a consultant at heart. I do love talking business and strategy. If you're in marketing and you're interested in some of these masterminds, for sure, reach out to me. And obviously, if you're an accounting firm, we'd love to talk to you. At least follow us, join the newsletter, listen. I have a podcast called Marketing for Accounting Firms as well. So find us in one of those places.
Okay, let's recap. Did this help you think about maybe using masterminds in some way to engage your customers or to engage your employees? Or if you are the employee, as an idea that you can pitch to your boss for more professional development to advance the work that you're doing. All of those scenarios are going to lift up the business to drive better results, better actions from the people that you are engaging with, more insights. So I hope this was insightful. Until next week, God bless.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe.